Hi, I'm Vendy, and I have a big problem. I stopped growing at 10. I'm 17 now, but I look like a child. The doctors failed to diagnose me, saying it was either a genetic mutation or an irreversible hormone failure. It cannot be treated anyway, so I live like this for 7 years already. And one more trouble. Dad lost his job and got an offer in another city. We all had to move, and I'm scared to death to go to my new class. I'll have to explain about my disease again, and I'll be a black sheep. The teacher met me in the corridor and said not to worry. Being unique is a big advantage nowadays. He even spoke of an albino model who became very popular. Really, that was my feature. Why should I be ashamed of it? I've never thought of it this way. I felt a bit calmer. We entered the class, and Mr. Barnes introduced me and said I would study with the folks now, and someone shouted immediately that the primary school was across the road. What had you just said about being unique nowadays, Mr. Barnes? Have your peers ever laughed at you? Share in the comments. After classes, I wanted to go home, but right as I went out to the yard, several classmates ran to me and grabbed me. "Hey, let go! What do you want?" The next second, they put a pacifier in my mouth and a baby rattle in my hand and took a pic like that. When I finally broke free, I ran home in tears. How cruel! The next day, I didn't want to go to school, but my parents insisted I went. I'd stood at the doors for several minutes, scared to enter. Maybe that thought something else out. But when I finally entered, the class leader, Steve, suddenly spoke to me. It was weird, as yesterday he hadn't even noticed me. During a break, Steve invited to eat with him in the canteen, and I was totally confused. Why so? Better to decline, which I did, but in the canteen he joined me himself and said he knew what happened yesterday and wouldn't let anyone hurt me again. Seriously, I felt so much calmer. The next day Steve was waiting for me at the doors to enter together. Wow! I even felt embarrassed, and when he said he'd walk me home, I got all excited. Could he like me? He'd be the first. How nice it feels to know someone likes you. Do you know this feeling? After classes, I asked Steve if we were going. He stared at me and loudly asked, "Won't I be prosecuted for this?" Everyone burst out laughing, and I understood it was just Steve's and others' wicked banter. I ran home and cried for a whole hour. I'll never set foot in this school again. If only I had a guy who'd be able to protect me. But of course, I need to find such a guy. I rushed to the computer. I needed to create a profile on a dating site and make an attractive pic. I did a bright makeup, took a close-up photo, and put several filters on. I looked stunning on it. And the pic doesn't show my child body. In an hour, a guy called Bob messaged me. It worked! We agreed to meet in a cafe and get to know each other closer. I arrived late to look at him from the outside. Bob turned out to be handsome, but I was scared of his reaction to me because I didn't mention my feature in the profile. I approached the table shyly and greeted him. Seeing me, Bob confused, and I understood he was astonished and didn't know what to say. "Relax, I really am 17. I just look, let's put it, way younger. Here's my passport, look." A waitress came and asked what would we like for lunch. Bob ordered 2 steaks and a salad. "Oh, I'm starving." We got to talking and felt more comfortable. Bob even made a couple of funny jokes, and then he left for the bathroom. After an hour, I understood he'd just run away, leaving me with a big bill. Surely I paid, given all my savings from the school lunches. Good thing I took some money with me, but it hurt so much. I agreed to meet the next guy in the street. I won't be tricked anymore. Sylvester turned out to be as big as a barn, and he looked older than his years. I was afraid to approach, but then I thought, what if such a guy came to my class? He'd immediately put everyone at their place. I came to him and said, "Hi, yeah, I'm 17, but I look like a child because I've stopped growing at 10. Sylvester looked at me carefully and said I was really pretty and he'd gladly continue the acquaintance. Really? Aren't you kidding me? We walked in the park and confided to each other. I told him about school and my classmates' problem, and he said he never got love from his parents and was bullied by his peers. So he decided to go to the gym and become a big guy everyone'd be scared of. At some moment he pulled me into a hug and kissed me. I screamed in surprise and got a policeman's attention. He asked what such a little girl had to do with that huge man. Sylvester stiffened and looked at me uncertainly. "Mr. Policeman, this is my friend, and I am 17, but I look like a child." Good, I had my passport with me to prove my words. The situation was solved, but Sylvester soon excused himself with some urgent matters and left. I guess he just doesn't want all this suspicion all the time. I deleted my profile. It was not the way to find the right guy. I didn't want to go to school, but I couldn't skip any more classes either. Just as I entered, Steve immediately asked where I'd been. I had no time to figure anything out. Someone pushed me into a baby stroller and carried me around. The guys laughed and someone shouted, "Don't cry, baby, your parents love you." And then Sylvester entered. He ordered everyone to their places and warned never to touch me from now on. I stared at my protector in shock, unable to believe it really was happening. And he came to me, kissed my cheek and said he'd wait me outside after the classes. Need I to say I was flying to him? I was so happy to have a person able to protect me. How much have I needed it? We held hands and strolled in no hurry. At one moment he said he'd like to make a proposal to me. What? But I'm only 17. Sylvester stared at me and said his gang was lacking someone like me. A small girl with a baby face is trustworthy, and it meant we could pull many deals off and get rich. I was just astounded hearing this. Are you joking? And he added, "Keep in mind, you can't just refuse and walk away. Your dad is an engineer at the sewing factory, isn't he? How do you know about dad? What do I do now? Folks, what would you do if you were me?" Did you like the story? Subscribe and hit the bell not to miss the new episode. Have a great one!